has Sonic Adventure 2, perhaps the most polarizing Sonic game ever. Considering the sheer amount of polarizing titles available, from Sonic R to modern games like Sonic Lost World, few games bring up such a range of emotional responses as 2001's Sonic Adventure 2, played here on the Sega Dreamcast. The game was a critical darling upon release, garnering a massive amount of positive press, and many fans still regarding Sonic's second adventure as the greatest Sonic game ever made. However, as time wears on, some critics have turned sour on Sonic Adventure 2, going as far as declaring the game sucks. It's been quite the turbulent ride for the Blue Blur, so on today's video I'm going to dive in and see, is Sonic Adventure 2 still good? Sonic Adventure 2 opens with a cutscene showing Sonic the Hedgehog escaping a gun helicopter. GUN stands for Guardian Units of Nations, which I assume is a play on the United Nations. Of course, no helicopter is capable of holding Sonic, who escapes, setting the stage for the opening level. City Escape picks up right where Sonic Adventure 1 left off. The controls feel familiar, and racing along the side of buildings, using the home attack to get over gaps, and Sonic just speeding around in general feels great and offers a nice foundation for the game to build off. New features are also added, including rail grinding, which is of course fast, as well as a sort of ducking somersault maneuver for getting underneath certain obstacles. Neither slows the overall flow of the game, and both are logical inclusions helping Sonic Adventures 2 gameplay evolve. It's also nice you are dropped straight into an action stage, and Sonic Adventure 2 contains no adventure fields between levels. After clearing City Escape, we arrive at the first boss fight against GUN. Between the opening helicopter ride, a giant truck chasing you through the city, and now a mech, it's clear GUN isn't messing around and will stop at nothing to recapture Sonic. Following this easy boss, we finally meet Shadow. Here it becomes obvious everyone has mistaken Sonic for this mysterious black hedgehog. While it is clear to the player these two look nothing alike, it's important to treat the plot like a Saturday morning cartoon, where some glasses and a fake mustache make for a good disguise. Anyway, Shadow possesses a Chaos Emerald and shows off Chaos Control, a warping move. While Sonic is wowed by the awesome power of Shadow, GUN catches up and recaptures Sonic. With Sonic's introduction out of the way, Eggman finally joins the party, attempting to steal the Master Emerald while Knuckles is bickering with a jewel thief named Rouge. Knuckles thwarts the theft by jumping to shatter the emerald, bringing him into the adventure, while Eggman announces he is heading to his base and the game moves forward. Like the first adventure game, Knuckles' gameplay consists of locating 3 emerald shards in an attempt to put the Master Emerald back together. If you're watching this, you already know the radar is borked, focusing on 1 emerald at a time and ignoring the other emeralds, even if you are standing right next to one. The hint system has also changed, with monitors offering vague hints about the emerald locations. It offers up to 3 hints per emerald, which you can revisit from the pause screen, which is nice. Thankfully, Wild Canyon is not a terribly large level, and locating the 3 items took around 5.5 minutes. After Knuckles reaffirms his place in the story, it's time for Tails to make his entrance. Tails is off to Prison Island, where Sonic is being held. Upon arrival, he notices Amy and Eggman already there, and Amy is in danger. This leads to the tornado transforming into the Cyclone, and a brief battle against Eggman. With the Cyclone introduction out of the way, it's time for a Tails level. Rather than simply racing through the Sonic levels with some added shortcuts thanks to his flying capabilities, the Tails segments are mech stages. These function like a middle ground between Sonic's speed and the slow gameplay of Knuckles' treasure hunting. All you do is traverse the levels, locking onto enemies and blasting them away. The more enemies you lock onto at once, the more points you receive. Additionally, many doors in this prison won't unlock until an entire horde of enemies has been vanquished. The controls here aren't terrible by any stretch, although locking onto targets can be spotty at times thanks to the lack of vertical aiming. After completing Prison Lane, Amy frees Sonic, declaring Tails brought her to Prison Island, even though he clearly didn't. Sonic completes his prison escape through Metal Harbor. Along the way, Sonic acquires the Light Shoes, allowing him to speed along a trail of rings. Like the grinding and the somersaulting, the Lightspeed Dash is a single-button affair, and the pace of the game is not slowed with its inclusion. When timed correctly, Sonic simply continues along at a high rate of speed, which is quite satisfying. The harbor leads to a confrontation against Shadow. 18 seconds later, the confrontation is over and Sonic learns he must escape Green Forest before Eggman blows the island up. This is another zippy level, though it is odd the lush green world with a water background wasn't first. In any case, Green Forest is riddled with automatic sections across giant loops, as well as swinging vines. These non-interactive moments don't bother me, as scripted sections have been a staple of the franchise since the beginning, enhancing the spectacle. With Sonic escaping just in time, we return to Knuckles and his quest for the Master Emerald pieces. Unlike Wild Canyon, Pumpkin Hill is rather expansive and hunting down the emeralds will take a bit more time. Instead of a reasonable 5.5 minutes, it took me a whopping 14. The story continues as Eggman hijacks the television feed and announces he is going to rule the world, and blows up the moon with yet another orbiting space station. Honestly, this has got to be the most badass thing the Mad Doctor has ever done. Meanwhile, Sonic and Tails surmise Eggman's WMD must be powered by the Chaos Emeralds, and Tails decides to use his Chaos Emerald to locate the rest, assuming this will lead them to Eggman. Of course, if the weapon is powered by the Chaos Emeralds, the emeralds are probably up in space. Before Tails can come to this deduction, the three split as Gun arrives yet again to break up the reunion. Anyway, Tails is on point in Mission Street. Here, Tails discovers the booster upgrade, adding hovering capabilities to the Cyclone. This does make the gameplay a little deeper, by altering the jump distance required by certain platforms, but for the most part, the gameplay doesn't stray far from locking onto a bunch of targets and shooting them. With Mission Street cleared, Knuckles is back in Aquatic Mine. Here, my absolute favorite platforming gimmick is introduced: water. Thankfully, the underwater controls are not bad, and there seems to be plenty of air bubbles available to keep the echidna from drowning. Better still is an air necklace power-up, allowing Knuckles to stay underwater indefinitely without air bubbles. Aquatic Mine is also somewhat creative, as there are 3 different switches allowing you to change the water level. This causes different platforms to float or sink, opening up new areas of the level while blocking off others. It's an interesting mechanic for sure, and one of the more thoughtful touches found in the game. With 3 more pieces of the Master Emerald gathered, Knuckles bumps into Amy and Tails, who have concluded the Chaos Emeralds must be in space. Tails then determines he needs to track down the President, who has been in contact with Eggman. This brings us to a driving level, Route 101. Strangely, Route 101 is barren, with little in the way of traffic. Still, the controls feel nice, with some decent drifting mechanics reminiscent of F-Zero X or Ridge Racer. Not as good, obviously, but the controls here are surprisingly adequate. As Tails reaches the President, he promptly disappears while Sonic takes over, interrupting Eggman, making his demands for surrender, and reappearing to hack the communication device and learn Eggman's location, the space colony Ark. This brings them all to the desert, where Knuckles reassures the gang something inside the pyramid will help them reach outer space. Next, each of the 3 characters does their part to complete an objective. Tails first has to find the pyramid's entrance in Hidden Base. Sonic infiltrates the base in Pyramid Cave, and finally, Knuckles locates the 3 hidden keys in Death Chamber. After this, Knuckles has a boss fight against King Boom Boo. This is another highlight of Sonic Adventure 2, doing a great job using the theme as a fun boss gimmick, and working within the confines of Knuckles' specific skills. The entire fight takes place in a circular stage where Knuckles needs to dodge the incoming attacks of the Ghost. Next, Knuckles needs to hit a target, which opens up a hatch in the pyramid letting in some light, causing the Ghost to become a vulnerable shadow. From here, chase the shadow and dig out the Ghost. Finally, attack the Ghost, which causes the entire pattern to repeat. A brief cutscene is shown with Eggman offering yet another challenge, and now it's Sonic's turn. While not as clever as King Boom Boo, the Egg Golem is cool, with Sonic dodging attacks, jumping up the backside of the Golem, and finally using the homing attack to inflict damage. Following this, the heroes all pile in the shuttle and take off for space to infiltrate the Ark, and Tails devises a plan to disable the weapon. It turns out Tails produced a counterfeit Chaos Emerald, which should neutralize the real Chaos Emeralds and bring down the weapon. So with that, Tails is off to find the power supply and external engine, while Sonic goes off to find the control room. Upon arriving at the control room, but just before using the fake Chaos Emerald, it seems Eggman has kidnapped Amy. Then it's a Knuckles level, Meteor Herd. Yeah, Sonic Adventure will do this from time to time, throwing a level in despite it having nothing to do with the cutscene just witnessed. Anyway, Knuckles needs to find some more Master Emerald shards that were knocked into space when he punched the Master Emerald earlier. Mercifully, this completes the Master Emerald quest, and then Knuckles and Rouge have an awkward character battle, followed by heavy panting. Thankfully, we are rescued by a Sonic level, Crazy Gadget. This level adds an insane amount of anti-gravity gimmicks, where different switches change the direction of gravity. For an anti-gravity stage, these aren't awful, though the camera angle makes them confusing at times. The final section is actually creative, with Tetris-style pieces floating around, and Sonic having to maneuver from platform to platform by changing the direction of gravity. Sonic catches up with the whole crew, where Eggman is holding Amy hostage at gunpoint. Again, Eggman is a total badass. Eggman traps Sonic while Tails spills the beans about the Chaos Emerald being fake, and shoots Sonic off into space. Up to this point, this has been the closest Eggman has ever been to finally ridding himself of his nemesis, which is awesome. Unfortunately for the Doctor, Sonic mimics the Chaos Control maneuver he saw Shadow do at the beginning of the game. While this is happening, Tails grows a backbone and takes on Eggman in a 33-second fight. Next, we pick up where Sonic arrived following his Chaos Control. Sonic returns to his goal to shove the fake emerald into the cannon before it fires, wiping out the Earth. I guess the president declined Eggman's terms to prevent this from happening in the first place. As we near the finish line in Final Rush, the rail grinding becomes the primary focus. These seem fitting enough, as these have been sprinkled throughout the game, giving you time to learn how they work before they are presented as the main mode of transportation. Wrapping up the adventure, Sonic and Shadow duke it out in a final battle, Sonic destroys the cannon as he had planned, and our hero story comes to a close. Of course, this is only half the adventure. With the hero story finished, we now get to go through the dark story and witness the events from a different perspective. In many ways, the dark story fleshes out the overall story. On the hero side, Sonic knows Gun is chasing him, but he doesn't seem to care why. Instead of trying to solve this riddle or clear his name, he focuses on Eggman, because that is what Sonic has always done. However, the dark story fills in the gaps. First, Eggman learns of a secret military weapon and decides he needs to get his hands on it. This sends him off in Iron Gate, which plays out like Tails' Prison Lane. Lock on to multiple enemies for big bonuses and destroy targets to open up doors. Simple stuff. Following this, Eggman accidentally releases Shadow the Hedgehog from his slumber, and the two become BFFs. While the dark story fills in many plot holes from the hero story with minimal overlap, the actual levels themselves mostly mirror those of the hero story. Shadow fights a Gunwalker with a different model number, but the B3X Hotshot is almost identical to the F6T Bigfoot, with a few attack variants. Shadow then tells Eggman to bring more Chaos Emeralds to the Space Colony Ark, and he'll grant Eggman a wish. From here, we are introduced to the final member of the Dark Trio, Rouge. Like Knuckles, she is looking for pieces of the Master Emerald Knuckles shattered across Earth and space. Her treasure hunting levels mimic Knuckles, although each stage is a remix of sorts. Dry Lagoon has a turtle warping you to different areas, rather than an air current. Egg Quarters is similar to Death Chamber. Mad Space is like Meteor Herd. However, Security Hall is unique and comes with the unique gimmick of a 5-minute time limit. The same goes for Eggman. Sand Ocean is just like Hidden Base, Lost Colony is like Eternal Engine, Weapons Bed matches Sonic's Metal Harbor, while Cosmic Wall is somewhat unique. Finally, Shadow's gameplay matches that of Sonic, and the remix stages are all familiar. Radical Highway mirroring Tails' Mission Street, White Jungle matching Green Forest, Skyrail is Pumpkin Hill, and Final Chase matches Final Rush. While I do wish the set pieces were a little more different than the hero side, the fact these are all remixed versions with occasional new gimmicks matches what the classic games did with multiple acts for each zone. But of course, we've got plot holes to fill in. We learned Shadow stole a Chaos Emerald from a bank, which is why Gun was chasing Sonic. We also learned Shadow is hell-bent on destroying the people of Earth, after his friend Maria was murdered. This is why he led Eggman to the Space Colony Ark, and we already witnessed the aftermath of that collaboration. It turns out the Space Colony Ark was a secret research facility specializing in weapons development, including the Eclipse cannon Sonic eventually destroyed in the hero campaign. Eggman also learns his grandfather was the lead researcher of the facility, giving a glimpse into Eggman's origins, which is nice. As Eggman and Shadow chit-chat about world domination, Rouge infiltrates Eggman's desert base, locates the space transporter, and transports herself to the space colony Ark. She makes a deal with Eggman. She'll locate additional Chaos Emeralds for Eggman if he hands over his Master Emerald Locator machine, seen earlier. Eggman agrees and Rouge joins as the third member of Team Dark. Throughout the Dark story, we also see Rouge talking with somebody via a communicator, acting like she's spying on Eggman. In a later scene, Shadow overhears her and figures out Rouge is actually a spy working for the President. I guess this is why the President never made a deal with Eggman, resulting in Sonic destroying the Eclipse Cannon without the President needing to agree to the Mad Doctor's proposal. We of course know what happens next. As Eggman launches the Eclipse Cannon, it doesn't go according to plan, and the Dark story comes to an end. With the Hero and Dark stories now completed, a new story segment is now available, The Last Story. Here we discover Sonic has not averted the destruction of the Earth, with the Ark itself now on a collision course for Earth. Gerald Robotnik is shown on an old pre-recorded message outlining how the space colony Ark is going to impact the Earth, killing everyone. After this, a diary is discovered giving even more background information. While Gerald Robotnik was working on the ultimate life form to benefit all of mankind, the military was sent in to shut it all down. With the death of Maria occurring during this military intrusion, Gerald went insane, reprogramming the ultimate life form to destroy mankind. However, as Eggman doesn't want to die, he agrees to help Tails, Rouge, Knuckles, and Sonic get the Master Emerald to the cannon's core to again neutralize the reaction, so they don't peril. The final level, Cannon's Core, is a team-up of these 5 characters. Tails and Eggman do mech things through the space colony. Rogue flips switches and presses buttons, Knuckles swims around flipping switches, and Sonic speeds around going fast. After beating this level, we move on to a cutscene with Amy and Shadow, who didn't participate in the festivities. Amy pours on the charm, triggering Shadow to finish his Maria memories, where he learns he is supposed to save mankind, not destroy it. With that, he zips off to fulfill his promise. After discovering a shrine for the Master Emerald, the prototype for the Ultimate Life Form is released, and Shadow, the other Ultimate Life Form, takes it on. The Bio-Lizard is a worthwhile adversary, and in many ways reminds me of the boss in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. At first, the fight seems impossible, but once you learn the pattern, it isn't so bad. You need to dodge projectiles using the jump and somersault maneuvers, then grind along some cables and homing attack the weak point. Later, you have to homing attack some bubbles to reach the weak point. In any case, once you get the patterns down, the boss is toast. I do wish this water-filled moat wasn't circling the whole thing, as falling in, which isn't always your fault, results in death, but it's a minor issue. With the Bio-Lizard out of the way, Knuckles returns the Master Emerald to its shrine, says his speech about Chaos Emeralds and chaos, and gives the camera a derpy look. From here, we move on to the final boss. First, Sonic and Shadow go super with the power of the emeralds and head out to space to take down the final hazard. Using some awkward space controls where you sort of dive up and down but sort of don't, you need to aim for the final hazard's boils and pop them. Do this 6 times and the final hazard is defeated. Unfortunately, the space colony Ark seems to have breached the atmosphere, so Sonic and Shadow use Chaos Control to warp it back into orbit. Sonic lives, Shadow is presumed dead, the characters all mope around in the most anticlimactic way possible, and the game comes to a close. It's a real downer if I'm honest, and the ending to the hero story is far more satisfying. In any case, with the Earth saved, the game is over, and the credits roll. With the gameplay and story out of the way, let's move on to the overall presentation. Graphically, Sonic Adventure 2 looks great. For starters, the texture work is some of the best found on the hardware, with detailed textures rarely looking pixelated or blurry. There are exceptions, of course, like in close-ups of the Cyclone, but as a whole, these are terrific. The characters also look detailed, with individual fingers and eyelids and enough animation to offer emotions. Now, there isn't much in the way of special effects, but I do like the crisp look the game provides. Even better, the frame rate is stunning, staying at a brisk 60 frames per second at nearly all times. However, the level geometry does seem a bit simplified. Most things are blocky, seemingly to lower the polygon count, and the backgrounds can be sparse, with set pieces sort of floating in the air. I do feel the reduced complexity is a nice trade-off for the frame rate, however, as Sonic is the fastest thing alive. The soundtrack is also fairly strong. While often a bit rock-heavy, there are some alternative music styles, such as smooth beats for Rouge and rap for Knuckles, and even nods to ska. The Eggman theme also deserves a shout-out for being over the top, just like the evil genius himself. The opening theme, Live and Learn, is catchy as hell and does an awesome job matching the attitude of Sonic the Hedgehog. While it can feel a bit generic at times, and I do wish there was more diversity, nothing here is below average. At worst, the tracks can blend into the background, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Speaking of generic, the set pieces can feel a bit bland. Outside the opening level and the jungle levels, nearly everything is either brown or gray. I would have liked to see more bright poppy visuals. Again, not a deal breaker, but something I observed. So, with the technical bits out of the way, we arrive back to the question asked at the beginning of the video: is Sonic Adventure 2 still good? On the surface, Sonic Adventure 2 is about what you would expect from a sequel to Sonic Adventure. There are multiple playstyles, a story slowly unfolding through multiple perspectives, with Eggman hell-bent on destruction of the Earth, and Sonic willing to risk it all to stop him. All of the checkboxes have been checked, setting the stage for an epic adventure. However, something about Sonic Adventure 2 has never quite grabbed me. It didn't grab me in 2001 when I bought it brand new, the very copy I'm using for this video. It didn't grab me 2 years ago when I reviewed it for the old review show, and it hasn't grabbed me at any point in between. I came into this video ready to finally beat Sonic Adventure 2, a game that has tormented me for nearly 16 years. Having beat quite a few games over the past couple years, I know with victory, my perspective of a game often changes. The satisfaction of finally completing something challenging often makes the entire experience much more rewarding, greatly increasing my appreciation. But after finally beating Sonic Adventure 2, that rewarding feeling never came. I still don't care for this game, and this left me with a new question: why? How can this beloved game, one of the most critically acclaimed games on the Sega Dreamcast, bring me so little joy? It's a difficult question for sure, but I've narrowed it down to a few key issues. First and foremost, Sonic Adventure 2 constantly feels like it's trolling you. This starts with the homing attack, which will often miss enemies, come up short, or ricochet you over a cliff to your doom. These chaos-looking things are the most obnoxious, as their arm attack exceeds the distance of the homing attack, making for plenty of collisions into them. Granted, the classic titles also have some less than stellar interactions with enemies. The trolling continues with the anti-gravity sections, where the camera doesn't always let you see the ceiling when you're upside down, which is kind of important. The center anti-gravity switch here also sends you to your death without warning. And the biggest troll of all is the 5-minute timer in Security Hall, which serves no real purpose other than to frustrate the player with an artificial limit. Second, there is way too much waiting around. For example, these gates won't open until you clear all of the enemies on the screen, which is logical enough. However, the final enemy is off the screen, where you can't see it, forcing you to wait around until you realize something is amiss. These elevator lifts don't have nearly enough enemies to warrant their excessive length, and you just sort of sit there and do little, waiting for the next area of the game to arrive. Knuckles and Rouge stages are filled with mindless gliding around, waiting to get a hit on the radar, or digging dozens of times in the same general area, looking for emerald pieces and keys. Worse yet, the clues in the space levels are written backwards, or provide the opposite information. A lame attempt at adding challenge to the gameplay, and don't even get me started on the gravity in these levels. There are switches literally right in front of the door. Why even bother with this extra step? Many of the bosses have long periods of invulnerability, extending their length but not adding any value to the gameplay, just forcing you to wait. The classic Sonic games had a few moments of limited interaction and waiting around for sure, but these moments occur with far more frequency in Sonic Adventure 2. Next, while the controls are good for a Sonic game, they don't feel as crisp as other games. The jump height of the two walkers is somewhat limited, and even though you are clearly supposed to make a jump, you miss for some reason, forcing you to repeatedly jump until the game decides to let you progress. The rail grinding is also imprecise. Jumping off the rails can be a real crapshoot, and landing landing on a rail even worse. Compared to other titles of the era, Sonic Adventure 2 falls short. Finally, the collision detection during the character battles feels sloppy. Sometimes your hits land, sometimes they don't, and sometimes you take damage. Eggman and Tails can even lock onto enemies through doors, which is just sort of bizarre. Enemies don't act consistent either. After somersaulting under this gap, a robot warps through the wall, causing damage. Again, the classic games had some weird collision glitches, but these were few and far between. So if the classic games have the same issues with trolling, waiting around, and collision hiccups, why do I find these offenses minor in some games, but find these same problems far more intolerable in Sonic Adventure 2? The answer is twofold. For one, the frequency of these low points is dramatically higher, creating a much worse fun time to bad time ratio in Sonic Adventure 2. Second, Sonic Adventure 2 is a much longer game. Despite being a seasoned Sonic player from the original Sonic the Hedgehog through Sonic Lost World, Sonic Adventure 2 took me 10 hours to beat, 5 to 6 times more than the classic games. This means after beating a classic game, I still have motivation left in me to give it another go, learning to deal with the game's quibbles. After beating Sonic Adventure 2, I'm exhausted. Now, feeling exhausted after playing a game is personal and not something everyone feels, but for me, it's like completing a grueling 10-hour shift at work. The last thing I want to do is another 10-hour shift. I also feel like Sonic Adventure 2 is drawn out. Numerous pieces of many levels are repeated. This feels unnecessary, and better games of the era don't pad the game's length by repeating sections of the level. Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, released in 2002, and Voodoo Vince, released in 2003, are both from the same era and managed to offer lengthy single-player campaigns without resorting to repeating level structures. It also goes without saying not all playstyles are created equal. Sonic and Shadow are significantly more fun to play as, but represent just a third of the levels. Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex was released a few months after Sonic Adventure 2, and it too was criticized for having too many gimmicky playstyles. But even then, a majority of the game was the fun platforming levels, with a minority of the game being flying, driving, and rolling levels. While these diversions are polarizing for sure, they were also short. Some of the Knuckles and Rouge stages are insanely long, taking upwards of 20 minutes to complete, 4 to 5 times longer than the best levels in the game. I'm sorry, but wandering around a level for 20 minutes trying to understand vague clues, waiting for your radar to pick up a signal, isn't fun for me. While Sonic Adventure 2's different gameplay styles each represent a third of the game's levels, they don't represent a third of the total time. The best levels are completed quickly, while the worst levels take forever. This means I am often waiting 30 to 40 minutes slogging through below average gameplay before I finally return to the good stuff, which is over way too quickly. However, I must also point out areas in which Sonic Adventure 2 absolutely excels. The Sonic and Shadow stages are generally a lot of fun. They do an excellent job mixing in light platforming with the roller coaster thrill ride which made the past games so good. When you string together grinding, somersaulting, light speeding, and homing attacks over enemies together just right, there is a rhythm and flow here few other games can match. It's a total blast, and I absolutely love it. There are even high points with Eggman and Tails. Now, Tails and Eggman cannot aim up or down, which creates awkward moments when you need to hit enemies that are high or low. However, when everything is placed in front of you, with jumps requiring a mix of normal jumps and the boosted jumps, these can be a ton of fun. Even better are these moving platforms. Eggman can flip a switch to make them stop. This requires the player to apply some critical thinking, learning the patterns of the moving blocks to proceed, stopping the platforms at the appropriate spot, and skillfully jumping along the temporarily stopped containers. This is awesome and perfectly plays to the strengths and gimmicks offered with the mech-style gameplay. Sadly, these cool puzzles are only found in a single level, and way underutilized in my opinion. Knuckles and Rouge also have some brief moments of enjoyment when they aren't going on tedious fetch quests. Again, Canon Core offers a glimpse as to what these characters could be. Right off the bat with Rouge, you have to utilize the flying gimmick to make your way across the level onto different platforms. It perfectly blends Rouge's flying gimmick with a little bit of problem solving, making this non-treasure hunting area a total blast. Knuckles too gets in on the fun. While I'm not much for the underwater segments in my platformers, the fact Knuckles can't drown once he acquires the air necklace is brilliant, eliminating the pace-breaking need to stop and wait for an air bubble. His goal in Canon Core is to flip switches, which shut off laser grids, and flip time switches, temporarily shutting off water current to progress through the level. Move too slowly and the current turns back on, which may push you into a laser, which admittedly sucks, but what you can see is the level design working well with Knuckles' skill set. But again, these mechanics are used in just a single level. What Sonic Adventure 2 really needed was a good editor, someone to cut out all the fat. First, get rid of half the mech stages and tweak the level design, removing the vertical aiming the characters can't do, and add more of these puzzle elements. Then get rid of the treasure hunting nonsense altogether, and give Rouge and Knuckles fun critical thinking levels to glide and swim through. While they were at it, they could get rid of all these character battles, which are repeated, breaking the continuity of the story, and instead stick with the real bosses. While the Bio-Lizard is frustrating at first, it is easy once you understand the patterns. Jump over this, somersault under that, homing attack these, repeat. Once you master the mechanics, this can be beaten rather easily, rewarding the player who learned the patterns. This is awesome, and Sonic Adventure 2 needed more of this and less of that. Remember the third act of Metropolis Zone in Sonic 2? Metropolis Zone wasn't a strong zone in the first place, and having to play through it a third time kinda sucked. And that feeling of dread is how a majority of Sonic Adventure 2 is for me. Again, this is my opinion based on my experience, but this is the best metaphor I can conceive to explain the overall feeling I have for the game. While I can look over some of any game's lesser moments, they are just too numerous in Sonic Adventure 2. The bright spots are too brief and the rough edges too frequent. For others, the bright spots will shine bright enough to negate the lesser moments, but I just can't get there. So no, in my opinion, Sonic Adventure 2 is no longer a good game. Age has finally caught up to it. While other platformers of the era were pushing the genre forward, finding the right balance of length and difficulty, linearity versus openness, and finally mastering the art of the 3D jump, Sonic Adventure 2 feels dated, still struggling to evolve past the formula invented in 1991. Now, I truly believe there is a good game lurking in here, and nothing would make me happier than to see a true director's cut, with all the cruft cut out, arriving at a nice balance of fun and challenge. But looking at Sonic Adventure 2 as a whole, declaring this a good game would be dishonest, and I can't in good conscience recommend this one outside of the hardcore Sonic fanbase. Your mileage may vary, but for me, the sun has set on Sonic Adventure 2.
Now go! Squash!